Rev up your engines!
Now here's something that hardly anybody's talking about, but the English have studied. The electric cars with their big batteries. Big batteries are what? Heavy. They weigh a lot. And it leads to much more tire wear. So they actually are putting out a really bad amount of particulate pollution. You get nanoparticles, little ones, like little pieces of the rubber tires coming off. One of the problems with nanotechnology, they find out that some of this stuff is going to cause cancer. So a lot of the projects they had to scrap because they found out that they're going to cause cancer if they did this in mass and these little particles flying all over the place. The company in England, Emissions Analytics, found out that the particulates that come off the car tires are 1,000 times worse than the exhaust particles coming out of a gasoline engine. And I quote the British study. Tailpipe particulate emissions are much lower on new cars, and tire wear emissions increase with vehicle mass and aggressiveness of driving. Half a metric ton of battery weight can cause tire emissions 4 times greater than real-world tailpipe emissions. Everything else being equal. These clean electric cars, not so clean. And then the British didn't even go as far as Scotty's gonna go. Okay, you're breathing this crap in, and the tires wearing out faster, a lot faster. With a lot more weight. They're not even getting into the other money aspect of. Our roads are crappy enough as it is. Here in Rhode Island, there's holes in the roads everywhere, right? The more weight you put on a road, the faster the roads are gonna wear out. That's why ages ago in the United States, they taxed the tractor trailers more because they're big and heavy and they ruin the roads more. But it turns out that actually the tax that they pay doesn't even come close to the damage that they do because they're so heavy they do scores times more damage than little cars do. But if everybody's got an electric car that weighs thousands of pounds more because of these heavy batteries, the roads fall apart even faster. You can't put more weight on a road without causing more wear. And of course, it's a cyclical thing because if you're someplace where the roads stink full of holes, right, and you put heavier vehicles, they're going to fall apart infinitely faster than before because they already have holes in them. And when a heavy vehicle goes in a hole, what does it do? It crushes the edge of the hole and more pieces fly off. So a never-ending cycle. You don't fix the roads, but you put electric cars that weigh more, then the crappy roads get even crappier even faster. And the English didn't even get into that part. They just said, well, it's pollution for you. Well, it's also pollution for the road. The roads will fall apart faster with heavier vehicles. That's just a fact, and there's no way of getting out of that. Electric cars are heavy because they have batteries. As it stands, they're all pushing the electric battery cars now. And you can see there's a lot of reasons that it's a stupid idea to do. Well, here's a couple more. Particulates can give us lung cancer that's 1,000 times worse than what the cars put out from emissions. And they're heavy. They're going to make our crappy roads even crappier, even faster. Moroku says I got an '03 Chevrolet Avalanche Z66. It lost power on the highway. It lost communication. Could it be a bad ground? What could it be? Help. Here's the unfortunate thing. When you plug in a scan tool and it says lost communication, any short in the electrical system that's connected to the computer system can cause loss of communication. My advice is, when you get no communication, go under the hood, start unplugging things one at a time. When you unplug them, and then your scan tool communicates, that's the system that's broken down. Let's say you unplug the crank sensor. All of a sudden you have communication. You'll know the crank sensor's bad. You can replace the crank sensor. You unplug the wiring further down, like by the fuse box. Well, then you'd know there's a short in the wiring somewhere. As soon as you unplug something, go and check your scan tool. All of a sudden it starts communicating. That's what the problem is. Now it can be a power. It could also be a ground failure. So you got to check the ground wires too. You got to disconnect them one at a time, clean them with some sandpaper, bolt them back on, and if they start working, great. Now you said you lost power on the highway. Here's my first guess. It is a GM product. The fuel pumps go out all the time. Now if the fuel pump shorts out while you're going down the road, it'll lose power and stop running, right? Perhaps. Just take out the fuel pump fuse. The fuel pump would not be getting power. If you take the fuel pump fuse out and you got communication, you know the fuel pump is what shorted out, and that's why you got no communication. That would be the logical first place to start, because realize there are miles of wiring in your vehicle, and you're going to have to check them all to find out why there's no communication. Romataki says, I have an intermittent check engine light, got a 2012 Suzuki. In the last 6 months, it comes on, it goes off. I go to places, they said, oh, just ignore it. It's a sensor or something. I want to know what's going on. You have an intermittent problem. The guys you're dealing with are idiots. Anybody with a good scan tool can hook it up, and we get historical codes. As long as you did not disconnect the battery, those codes are going to be stored in the computer, and they'll be able to analyze. Could be any of 1,000 different things. You got to get the codes. You get the codes, send me the codes. I'll tell you what the codes mean. Let's say you give out it to a guy like me who knows what he's doing, and I plug into my machine and I say there's no codes, but yours keeps coming on and off. That's a numero uno sign that you got a bad main computer. There are no codes for a good mechanic who plugs his machine, and that means that your computer's starting to short out. It's bad, and as something that's broken, it isn't necessarily going to tell you that it's broken. If the computer's working okay and the sensor's broken, it'll tell you the sensor's broken. But if the computer itself is broken, it often won't tell you that, and there won't be any codes, and then you would need a new computer, and that would be the problem that you're having. DNA Florida says, I want to use van. I drove my Honda Odyssey in the ground and need a replacement. I'm looking at an 06 Honda Odyssey, $131,000 for $5,500. 2004 Toyota 4Runner for $8,500 with 140,000 miles, or 2008 Chrysler, town and country. Now the Honda, I don't know how many miles you got out of yours, but Honda's had problems with the engines, the cam's wearing out, but mainly the automatic transmission's breaking out. Chrysler, town and country. Chrysler vans were known as the worst vans in the world. As the joke goes, how come you can fit 8 people in your Chrysler van? Well, so that 7 of them can get out and push, and the other guy can do the steering wheel so you can push to a garage to get it fixed. The Toyota 4Runner would be the choice of those by far. It's the best vehicle, they can run forever, but as anything, you got to find a guy like me, check it out before you buy it. You know if it's flooded, stolen. I mean, I made that video last year in Tennessee where a guy bought a used Lexus at a Toyota dealership and it was a pile of crap. He paid $9,500 and the engine was all worn out. So, you got to have a mechanic check it out before you buy, not after you buy. But the Toyota by far would be the one that you'd want to buy out of those. Go with the Chrysler. And the Honda Odysseys, it's very iffy getting a used one because they have so many transmission problems. And a lot of them, the cams and the engine wore out. It's got 131,000 miles. It could very well have both wearing out. Well, if you've been watching the news, the car company, truck company, I should say, Rivian, the stocks really plummeted way, way down. It was way up and now it's $30-something a share. Now, they said it's bouncing back a little. Yeah, tiny little bit, right? Because they say demand remains and production is actually on track. We weren't wrong. Yeah, they haven't produced any vehicles, right? They just lie about all this stuff because they're a company that wants people to keep buying their stock, right? Now, if you've ever studied anything in the stock market, this little bit that's going up now is what's called a dead cat bounce. As they say, even a dead cat bounces. It only bounces a little, then it falls right back down again. That's what the whole analogy is. Because they said their loss was more narrow than Wall Street expected. Wall Street expected $1.43 a share loss, and it was only $1.42, 1 penny. Like I say, it's a dead cat's bounce. If I were you, I wouldn't put my money into this stock. They don't know how many people are going to buy electric pickup trucks. The company hasn't even produced massive amounts. Who knows? They might all fall apart like a Chinese motorcycle, as the Rodney Dangerfield joke used to go. Originally Ford put a bunch of money into it. They said, we're going to build Fords on the Rivian chassis. They'll have the skateboard chassis with the motor and everything and the battery, and then we'll put our Ford body on it. Well, last year or so, Ford said, we're not going to do that, so they're not going to be doing that either. I don't foresee great things for the Rivian company. Not only is it starting up, and they got a lot of problems, the main thing is, how many people are actually going to buy electric pickup trucks? Guys want something tough. They can go anywhere. They can refuel it anywhere fast, especially if you use it for a business. You got a business. 1, you can't be sitting there for an hour recharging it. 2, you might be in the middle of nowhere where there's nowhere to recharge it, and you're stuck with a vehicle that you can't jump start it because as soon as you take the jumper cables off, it stops because it doesn't have a combustion engine. You'd be running the electricity off the cables, take the cables off, no electricity, it would die again. I wouldn't put much into this Rivian bouncing up stock. It's just a dead cat bounce. They all bounce back a little bit, and the company will say all kinds of stories about, oh, it's really good. It's really, no. We don't have any problems. Don't worry about it. Then on the bottom of the statement, you always see, these are forward-looking statements by the company that might not reflect reality, Be wary of everybody jumping on the electric bandwagon, because let me tell you, that bandwagon is going to short out pretty soon, if you ask me. There's this cryptocurrency called UST that's supposed to be stable. It's pegged to $1, 1-to-1. Well, it went under 50 cents the other day. Now, these stable coins are kind of like a bank account for cryptocurrencies. Each one is worth $1. Well, it went down to 50 cents in trading the other day. Maybe not so stable. And if you've watched, there's been a sell-off in cryptocurrency. Bitcoin's come way down from what it had been up to. It was up to 60,000. Now it's like 31,000. I can't believe that people actually put their money in that stuff myself. I mean, I understand. I talked to a guy who was an expert and years ago, and he said, oh, Scotty, it's used for laundering money. Money launderers love that. That's a great thing for laundering money. But what are the experts saying about it? They're saying, well, these are fragile economies. Yeah, fragile, all right. It breaks and then you don't have anything left. Don't get involved in stuff like that. I mean, you're betting against your own government's currency. Smart move, right? Yeah, you're betting that your government currency isn't going to work. If the government currency goes, doesn't matter how many bitcoins you have, it's not going to mean anything. Everything would fall apart, right? So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.